My neighbor came over the other day and he said, I got this new hearing aid. He said, it cost me $4,000. It's high-tech, leading edge. It's the best. He said, I just love it. I said, what kind is it? He said, 1230. So these four golfing buddies, they played together for years and they used to eat lunch at the golf course. Well, they get in their 40s and they're thinking we should go somewhere else. So they discussed where they should go for lunch and they finally decided to go to Hooters because the girls were hot and the beer was cold. So they did that for a few years and they got to their 50s and they were discussing where they should go for lunch and they decided to go to Hooters because they had big screen TVs and the beer was cold. So they did that for a few years, then they got to their 60s and they were discussing where they should go for lunch and they decided to go to Hooters because they had good food and it was reasonably priced and the beer was cold. So did that for a few more years. They got to their 70s and they were deciding where they should go for lunch and they decided to go to Hooters because they had handicap parking and handicap washroom and the beer was cold. So then they got to their 80s and they were discussing where they should go for lunch and they decided to go to Hooters because they'd never been there before. So you know, when we're young, we have a few drinks, we watch where we're going, we get away with a few things. So as we get older, we get a little wiser, hopefully. So a couple of weeks ago, I went out for dinner with friends, and I had a couple of cocktails, and I had a really good bottle of Beaujolais. It was the end of the night, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I better take it easy. So I did something I'd never done before. I took a cab home. And he said, and you know, sure enough, on the way, there was a police roadblock, but because it was a cab, they waved it through, and eventually I got home. And you know, surprisingly, he said, to myself, I'd never done that before. And now I've got it, it's sitting in my garage, and I don't know what the hell to do with it. So you know that neighbor of mine, the one I told you about with the hearing aid? Well, surprisingly, it must have worked because at 2:30 in the morning, he came over banging on my door. Imagine, 2:30 in the morning, banging on my door. Lucky for him, I was still up playing my bagpipes. So this elderly fella, he's driving home and he gets a phone call from his wife. And she says, Harry, she said, look, there's a report of a car going the wrong way on the I-10. She said, really, please be careful, I'm really concerned. He said, one car? He said, geez, there's hundreds of them. Goes to a doctor. There's going to be a lot of doctor stories, you know, about that. Anyways, he says, you know, he said, my wife Marge, he said, yeah, he said, I think she's going deaf, he said, but I'm not sure, and he said, I don't want to broach the subject with her because anything to do with aging, she just loses it if I start talking to her. He said, is there any way I can check to see if in fact she is? So the doctor said, sure. He says, when you go home, he said, make sure her back's to you. He said, get about 30 feet away and talk to her in a normal tone of voice and see if she responds. If she doesn't move in 10-foot increments till you get there, then eventually she'll respond. He can come back and tell me, we'll do something about it. So he gets home, sure enough, she's in the kitchen and she's at the counter making dinner and he goes out in the living room, he's about 30 feet away, he says, Marge, what's for dinner? No response. Moves up to 20 feet. Marge, what's for dinner? No response. Goes up to 10 feet. Marge, what's for dinner? No response. So he gets right up behind her. He says, Marge, what's for dinner? She turns, she said, damn it, Frank, for the 4th time, chicken. So this guy goes for his annual medical. Doctors told him. Goes for his annual medical and doctor says, well, generally everything's okay. He said, but you seem to have gained a few pounds since I saw you a year ago. He said, have you changed your eating habits? He said, no. He said, I pretty much eat what I always did. The wife keeps an eye on me about that. He said, well, do you drink? He said, yeah, I drink. He said, well, what do you drink? He said, I drink whiskey. He said, well, do you know, he said, that an ounce of whiskey is equivalent in calories to a slice of bread? Like he really cared. He said, I didn't know that. He said, well, how much would you say you drink in an evening? He said, oh, about a loaf. Just checking a few things here. My memory's not as sharp as it used to be. Did I mention my memory's not as sharp as it used to be? So this guy waited many years, he retires. He takes his wife and mother-in-law and they go to the Holy Land. Always wanted to do it, they're in the Holy Land, and the mother-in-law dies. So he goes to the mortician, he said, so what are my options here? And he said, mortician said, well, he said, you can fly her back to the States for $5,000, or you can bury her here in this beautiful place, the Holy Land, for $500. What do you want to do? He didn't hesitate. Let's fly her home. He said, well, why would you do that? He said, this is a beautiful spot, it's the Holy Land, and for $500, I mean, you know. He said, well, I'll tell you, he said, approximately 2,000 years ago, a man died here. They buried him, and 3 days later he rose from the dead. He said, I can't take that chance. Man, it's dry in the desert. So, this couple, they had both been widowed, they were in their 70s, and they got remarried, but in their previous marriages they hadn't had any children. So they're watching this National Geographic show about, in vitro fertilization and all these things you could do to maybe have kids in there, thinking, and they said, we didn't have kids in our previous marriage, maybe we could do it now with all this new technology. Let's go to the doc and see about it. So they go to the doctor the next day, and of course the doctor hears this story and figures, well, I'll put a stop to this. So he said, look, tell you what, he said, Frank, you go home, take this sample bottle and bring me back a sperm sample tomorrow. So they go home. And Frank comes back the next day and not looking too good. The doc says, what's the matter? Well, I don't know, Doc. He said, I'll tell you. I tried my left hand, tried my right hand. The wife tried her left hand, tried her right hand. Teeth in, teeth out. Didn't matter what we did. We couldn't get the top off that damn sample bottle. Village. He goes to see his shut-in parishioners. They can't get to the church's office, so he goes to see Mrs. O'Malley. So he gets to Mrs. O'Malley's house, and she sits him down. She says, Father, would you like a tea? He said, sure. So she goes to make some tea, and there was a bowl of peanuts there. So he starts having a couple of peanuts, and she comes back, and they're having the tea, and he eats more of them, and before he knows it, they're all gone. They're really good. And he said, Mrs. O'Malley, he said, I got to apologize. He says, I know you're on a fixed income and all that. He said, but he said, I started eating these peanuts. He said, I couldn't stop. He said, they were just so delicious. I think nothing of it, Father. She says, she said, ever since I lost my teeth, all I can do is suck the chocolate off. This fellow goes to confession. No more doctors. Goes to confession. He says, what do you have to confess? He said, I made love to a 27-year-old woman yesterday. He said, you did? Yes, I did. Was she married? No. Are you married? No. I said, how old are you? I said, I'm 78. He said, I don't recognize your voice. Do you remember this congregation? Oh, Father, I'm not even Catholic. I'm Jewish. He said, what the hell are you coming here telling me this story for? He said, I'm telling everybody. I'm just going to leave you with a few words of wisdom. Just remember, we're never too old to learn anything stupid. You fill out these forms all the time, and they say, who to contact in case of an emergency? I always put down doctor. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom's not putting it in a fruit salad. And remember, men, this is for you. If your wife doesn't find you handsome, they better find you handy.